A very good evening it is over here in Amsterdam to all of you. Welcome, welcome to this webinar. I see that we have got about 25 people here right now, which is lovely. Welcome, folks. What I would love for you to do is go over in the chat. You'll see a chat toward the right-hand side of your screen, which I guess is the other side of your screen, and just say hi. Be great if you could say hi and maybe where you live. So my name is Peter. Hello. And I live in Amsterdam right now. So you can go do that over in the chat on the right just to confirm that things are working. There we go. I see people from Las Vegas, Warsaw, Norway, San Diego. Oh, hey, Sue. I recognize your name. That's cool. Theo, hello. See, I'm already seeing a bunch of people that I recognize. Nice to see folks. Nice to see folks. So, I'll tell you in a sec what we're going to do today. Just so you know, this webinar platform we're using here is Webinar Ninja. My first time using this like for a legit webinar, so maybe some things I'm figuring out on the go. But let's give it a shot. So you'll see that if you scroll down, okay, there's a questions section. And so throughout the webinar, if you have a question, it'd be lovely if you could ask that as a question using the question feature, because we're going to have a point where I'm going to be answering your questions. And it's easier to do that. If you ask me a question from the chat, I will probably not see it. So I will probably not answer your question if you ask it in the chat. But thank you all for saying hi. I see people from all over the place. Turkey, France, Peru, Minneapolis, Sweden. So that's really lovely to see. I always like to see that. Let me pull up the slides that I've prepared for today's webinar, and then I'll kind of walk you through how it's going to work. Pulling those up. Alrighty, so you should all be able to see these slides right now. Be great if someone could confirm that in the chat. So today's webinar, taking action on your goals. Thanks, Leonardo, for confirming that. Taking action on your goals. That's what we're going to be talking about. And what is the agenda? First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am. I think some of you may be more familiar with me than others. And so just as a little refresher, who's Peter? Then we're going to have sort of 3 steps that are really like the content here. That's me teaching you something. How can you take action on your goals? And we're going to split that up in formulating better goals. That's point number 2 here. In creating actionable projects. And then talking a little bit about how do you actually start with like step number 1. Okay, so that's part 4 here, how to start taking action. I'll try and go through that maybe 20 minutes or something like that. And then after that, I'm going to throw it to you guys and we're going to have a Q&A session. And that's going to be interactive. We're going to be talking about your goals. That's how we're going to do this today. And at that point, I want you guys to ask questions using that, again, question feature that you'll find if you scroll down. I see, Bernd, that you're on the iPad. I'm sorry, I do not know what the iPad interface is like. So maybe if someone has figured that out, you can share that with Bernd and help him out. And if you guys can ask your questions at any point, I'll answer them when we hit part 5 of the agenda. And also at that point, I'll just invite you again and we can work on your goals. Okay, sweet. People found it. That's fantastic. So at the end, we're going to wrap up. I'm going to make you guys an offer related to my latest course, but I'll tell you all about that when we reach the end. So who am I? Real quick. My name is Peter. I am Dutch, grew up in the Netherlands, and at the age of 17, moved to Hong Kong to finish the last 2 years of my high school. After that, I ended up studying in the US. Really fun, loved it. And after that, I went to work as a litigation consultant in the US. So for those of you who don't know what a litigation consultant is, also known as an economic consultant, basically it's about helping big corporations save money when they're being sued. That's basically what it is. So that has very little to do with what I do today. Because today I teach people how to be more productive and more organized. And I got there through a long, long time of being really burned out from my former job and just thinking about what do I want to do with my life? You know, how do I want to help other people? And eventually I realized, you know what? I don't want to work for anybody else. I just don't want to work for anybody else anymore. You know, that's not the thing that I want to do. So I'm going to start my own business. And I had lots of different business ideas. Most of them just didn't go anywhere. So a couple of big failures, but is anybody among you who maybe has their own business knows that's the way it works. You try out some things, they don't work, and at some point you hit on something that works. Fast forward a couple of years, now I teach people how to be more productive for a living. So I have 3 productivity courses. Last time I checked, I had over 700 students who've gone through these courses. And the 3 courses, I just put it on the slide right here. Maybe some of you have taken one of my courses or multiple courses, I'm sure, in fact. One of them is called Organize Your Life with Things 3. Another one's called Get Stuff Done with OmniFocus 3. And those 2 courses are sort of my first 2 courses. They're all about using one of these 2 apps to build a system for you to get stuff done day to day, week to week, manage your tasks, manage your projects. Okay. And so after I have been selling those courses for a while, people going through them, I got a lot of amazing feedback that people said, okay, Peter, but that's great. Now I know how to do stuff day to day and week to week. But I have all these big goals, big plans for my life. And so how can I go from like big goal to day to day making progress? And that's why I created my 3rd and latest course, which is called Big Picture Productivity. And so today's webinar is really an excerpt from Big Picture Productivity. It's really taking one of the nuggets that I teach in Big Picture Productivity and showing it to you guys and teaching it to you. So that's what we're going to do today. And just in case you want to learn a little bit more about Peter, the non-productivity person, some of my other interests include scuba diving. It's probably my favorite, number 1 favorite thing to do. Public speaking. I am vegan. Really enjoy Formula One. Was just watching Formula One earlier today, actually, before this webinar. And a big Philadelphia Eagles fan as well. So now you know who I am. Let's talk about useful stuff, huh? So today we're going to talk about taking action on your goals. Like I said, we're going to do it in 3 steps. Step 1 is for you to formulate better goals. So what do I mean by that? You may have a lot of goals in different areas of your life. Okay, you may have goals related to your health, related to your work, your business, goals related to your relationships, all kinds of different goals. And so when you're writing down your list of goals, when you're asking yourself, what is it that I really want? I want you to be super precise about the outcome. Okay, so here's an example of a not so great goal. Learn to scuba dive. What does that mean? Okay, if you have the intention of, I want to learn how to scuba dive. First of all, that's a great intention. I love it. You know, you're on the same page as I am. That's fantastic. I mean, I've learned by now, but it's really imprecise because what does that mean? It could be you learn how to do like a 1-day introductory scuba dive, right? Where the instructor holds your hand the whole time. Basically, you just go under the water once just so you can say, now I learned how to scuba dive. Or you could be like a professional police diver, right? Who like goes into lakes and stuff for people who are missing or anything like that. So there's a lot of different ways that you can scuba dive. So if that's your intention, setting that as a goal is really vague and doesn't help you actually take any action. So instead, what I would urge you to do is be more precise about it. So what does that mean? That means saying, for example, hey, I want to complete the PADI open water course. PADI is like the Professional Association of Dive something. I forget exactly what it stands for. If one of you happens to know, you're welcome to share this in the chat. And it's like the world's most popular dive association, okay? And they offer courses that you can take at dive centers around the world. And the introductory course is actually their open water course. So you can take their open water course. And after you take that course, you've learned the basics of diving. So you can dive up to a certain amount of depth, etc. And this is really binary when you phrase your goal this way, when you say it really precisely, rather than saying, I want to learn to scuba dive. If you say, I want to complete PADI's open water course, now it's binary. I mean, you achieved it or you didn't, right? So that's a much better goal. Being precise really helps. Now, some goals don't really lend themselves to binary outcomes, okay? So one of the things I want to do, for example, is build more muscle. I want to build more muscle, but I don't really care about like being able to lift any particular amount of weight or something like that. I just want to build more muscle. And that's fine. So the quest is not to have every goal be extremely precise, but be as precise as you can be. So when you're setting your goals, and I like to do this quarterly, we can talk about that later if you like. When I set my goals, I am as precise as I can possibly be. Not all goals are going to be super precise or have binary outcomes, but be as precise as possible, okay, for your particular goal. Second thing is add constraints. So an example of an unconstrained goal might be to learn Japanese. So I think it's fantastic if you want to learn Japanese. I do not know any Japanese myself, although I've been told that it's a very difficult language to learn. I did study Chinese for 2 years back in high school, and that was hard. But from what I understand, Japanese is really hard. And so if you want to learn Japanese, what does that mean? That's not really constrained. So at which point do you sit down, you tell yourself, now I have learned Japanese. Very difficult to pinpoint such a point. So instead, I would urge you to constrain it a little bit. For example, you might say, hey, I want to learn to speak conversational Japanese. So now we're talking about speaking as opposed to reading and writing. And we're talking about conversational Japanese as opposed to business language or philosophy. Okay? So by constraining your goal, it's easier to take action. You also want to focus on things that you control. So I told you earlier that I did the last 2 years of my high school in Hong Kong. This was at something called a United World College. So I don't know if anybody's heard about that. By the way, if you heard about that, let me know in the chat, because I'd be curious to see if anybody has heard about that. The United World Colleges is this association of high schools. Okay, they're all over the world, and you can apply as a student to be accepted to one of these schools, right? And if you get selected, they'll send you to one of them. And as a parent, I've met a lot of parents who have gone to one of these schools themselves, and they say, you know what? I want to send my kids to a United World College as well. I had such a good time. I want to make sure that I send my kids there as well. Okay. And that's just not a very useful goal to have, because you don't control whether your kids go there. What you can control is whether you're encouraging your kids to go there. So that's why you want to phrase goals in a way that you control. So you might want to rephrase this particular one as, hey, I'm going to encourage my kids to apply to this particular school. So I hope that makes sense. So avoid goals that are out of your control. So today I'm going to give you 3 to-dos. And to-do number 1, okay, is to list very precise goals. So we were just talking about make sure they're constrained, make sure they're really precise, and about things that you control. So what do you do after you do that? After you make a list, and you can do this like on a piece of paper or in your notes app or wherever, I don't care. Just list your goals. In fact, list them in the chat right now. If you have a couple of goals, why don't you list them in the chat just so we can see what kind of goals people are talking about, okay? After you list your goals, you want to start thinking, hey, how am I going to take action on these goals? So I like to talk about the difference between goals on the one hand and actionable projects on the other hand. Hey, thanks. Someone says blog once a week. So that's a nice goal, a nice example. And I'll come back to that example in a little bit. So let's talk about the difference between goals on the one hand and actionable projects. A goal is something you want. An actionable project is something you're going to do to get what you want. And each goal has one or more actionable projects, okay? So the way it works is it's kind of a one-to-many relationship. We've got a goal, and a goal has like multiple projects. Another goal is multiple projects. And we'll talk in a second about what actionable projects actually are. But it's really important to understand this distinction. Goals are just things you want, right? So Theo says, for example, I want to write 1 page each Monday of the book that he wants to finish by the end of the year. That's a goal, okay? And so we're going to translate that into projects, because projects are much more actionable than goals. So what do I mean by this actionable project thing? So first of all, it's a project. And I'll real quick tell you what is the difference between a project and a task, because you got to be on the same page with me here. If you've taken one of my courses, you know this because I talk about it all the time, but we got to be on the same page. So a project is something that takes more than one step, and you may not do all the steps at once. So something that is not a project is like vacuum the floor. If I'm going to vacuum the floor, I'm going to take out my vacuum, right? I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to, go all over the floor, unplug it, and put it back in wherever I store it, right? And so I could break that task down into a lot of subtasks, like grab the vacuum cleaner, plug in the vacuum cleaner, vacuum the floor. But that doesn't make any sense, because I'm almost always going to do all of this at once, okay? Whereas a project has a bunch of sub-steps that you may not do all at once. So for example, clean the apartment. So if I'm going to clean my apartment, maybe today I'll clean the shower and the toilet, okay? But maybe I'll reserve cleaning the floor, cleaning the kitchen counter for tomorrow. So cleaning the apartment is a project, because even though a task also has subtasks sometimes, right? A project, you're not necessarily going to do it all at once. You may stop in the middle, okay? You may do it all at once, but you may not. So that is the distinction there between a task and a project. So an actionable project needs to not only be a project, but also needs to be actionable. So what does that mean? First of all, it's got to be completable. So thinking in terms of projects is really going to make a huge difference to your productivity if you don't already think in terms of projects. And your projects have to be completable. What does that mean? They got to have a defined outcome. So if something's never ending, it's not a project. And I like the example of, for example, exercising 3 times a week. So sometimes I work with people one-on-one, right? And then we're digging around in their task manager, and I see that they've got a project, and it says exercise 3 times a week. The thing is, that's not really a project, okay? Because it's not completable. You can't finish it. You can exercise 3 times this week, but then next week you're going to have to exercise 3 times again. So because it's never ending, that is not a project. But if you do want to exercise 3 times a week, what can you do to actually make yourself, achieve that, right? You can phrase things in a completable way and think in terms of completable projects. So the example that I give here is set up an exercise schedule. If you want to exercise 3 times a week, rather than just intending for that to happen, set up a schedule. And we'll talk in a second about what it might entail to create a project to set up an exercise schedule. So we'll go through the steps a little bit. Projects also have to be actionable, meaning you must know how to take action, and the action must be feasible for you right now. Okay, so it sounds simple, but sometimes people get a little hung up on this or get stuck. So what is not actionable? For example, become a better writer. In fact, I know there's someone on this call right now who wants to become a better writer. And so if you want to become a better writer, you can tell yourself, okay, I'm here in my task manager. I'm going to create a project and say, like, I'm going to become a better writer. What can I do now? But like, where do you start if you want to become a better writer? Like, what is step one? You don't know because it's very unclear, not very well defined. Instead, you can create actionable projects to help you do that. So a good example here is sign up for a fiction writing masterclass. Like maybe you want to become a better fiction writer, right? So by creating a project that says sign up for a fiction writing masterclass, you have something that you can complete and you have something that you know how to do. So it's actionable because you know how to do it. You know how to go look around for masterclasses on fiction writing and decide which one you like best and then enroll, okay? So actionable projects are really the key. So to do number 2 for you today, right? To do number 1 was make a list of your goals and make it as precise as you can. List your goals really precisely. Phrase them in such a way that it's clear, right, what you want. To do number 2 is to create actionable projects. At least one for each goal, but sometimes you'll have more. So if you do want to become a better writer, what is the 1, 2, or 3 actionable projects that you can do? Not necessarily today, but that you could do right now if you had the time and energy, right? To actually make progress towards that goal. So again, it's a one-to-many relationship. One goal, multiple actionable projects. How do you actually take action once you have decided what kind of actionable projects you're going to have for your goal, okay? Or for your goals. Let's talk about that. First of all, for each of these actionable projects that you create, I want you to list the project's steps in the right order, in the order that it makes sense to do them. So you can ask yourself, what is task number 1? So if you want to sign up for a workshop, like what is task number 1 for signing up for a workshop? And a lot of the times people get stuck here. So I'm working with them on their projects and they say, yeah, I know what my goal is. And I think I know what an actionable project is, like what I could do or complete to get me closer at least to my goal. But I just have such a hard time actually making myself do it. I procrastinate, right? I put it off. And so a lot of the times this is just people resisting beginning. So my advice here is if you are resisting like the very first task number 1, break it down. Break it down into a bunch of smaller tasks. So for example, we got Justin over here in the comments or in the chat, and he says, I want to create my portfolio website. So if your project is create my portfolio website, it's really hard to start taking action on that. I mean, what is task number 1? And so if you can write this project as a series of tasks that are very well defined, that you know exactly how to do, then you'll start making progress. And once you do anything in the right direction, it's so much easier to keep going than if you're still looking at that first task and you don't know how to do it. If this sounds a little abstract, I understand. Let's go through 2 very specific examples. Okay. Let's say you want to build a weightlifting routine. So what is a task that is not useful to have in your task manager? And it says, listen, I want to like start a weightlifting routine. And so task number 1 is choose a routine. That's hard. Like visualize yourself doing it. What does that look like? Choosing a routine, right? You don't know because it's too vague. So preciseness is so important. So instead of saying choose a routine, instead of making that task number 1, create a specific task. For example, copy the Nerd Fitness beginner routine to my notebook. So for those of you who don't know the website Nerd Fitness, it's a fitness website with a kind of like fun, nerdy, playful attitude. So check that out. And so you might say, listen, they have an article that's a beginner weightlifting routine. I'm just going to copy that and write that down in like a little notebook that I have. That could be task number 1 for you. Now, there's going to be some other tasks in the project, such as, watch the instructional video for each lift I'm going to be doing, practice each lift without weights, schedule time for lifting on my calendar. But really, once you do this first very precise, specific number 1 task, in this case, copying the beginner routine in your notebook, it's so much easier to keep going. You're just gonna have that energy that's gonna get you going. Let's do another example. Sign up for a cooking class. Let's say your goal is, I want to learn how to, in 30 minutes, cook like a healthy vegan recipe. Okay. And you might say, I want to sign up for a cooking class with my partner so that we can learn how to do that. So a very hard to start task number 1 is choose a cooking class. Okay. That's just really tricky because, again, visualize what that looks like. What does it look like to choose a cooking class? I mean, I think if you phrase it that way, you may visualize yourself on the couch with your partner being like, so are we going to sign up for a cooking class? And like nothing happens, So instead, make it really specific and actionable. Here's an example that, okay, admittedly, this is a long task name, but I phrased it as identify all cooking classes within 30 minutes of my place that run on days that I can make it. So you don't want to travel too far for such a cooking class. There are only certain nights of the week, maybe only Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evening that you can make it. So step number 1 could be, okay, literally in my town, which cooking classes are there, that teach what I want to learn on days that I can make it. And maybe you'll find that there's 4 or something like that. Now you have a place to start, right? Now you can look them over. And so some of the other tasks involved in this project, maybe propose to your partner that, why don't we do this particular class, right? And then maybe fill out the registration form once you have the agreement, and then put the classes on your calendar. So the rest of the project, I'll leave it for you to think through. The key is to make task number 1 super easy to start with. And if it's hard to start with, chances are it's either too vague or just too big. So just break it down, make it more precise. So that's to-do number 3 for you, okay? So first, write down your list of goals, make it super, super, super precise. Then create an actionable project or more than one actionable project for each of your goals. So literally ask yourself, okay, I want this. How am I going to get this? Like, what outcome do I want to achieve that's going to move me towards the goal, or is just going to help me achieve the goal right away? After you've got those actionable projects, fill them in with steps. Fill them in with steps in the order that you need to do those steps. So those are your tasks, okay? And start with a super easy to complete, really precise task number 1. And then move on to task number 2. If you get stuck, if you procrastinate, do the same thing. Break down the next step into very, very tiny pieces. Okay, so those are your 3 to-dos that I'm giving you today. And what I want to do now is actually move on to your goals and projects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close out the slides here. We'll come back to those later. And what I would like you guys to do is use the question feature. So I see that some of you have been chatting, have been writing stuff in the chat, but can you use the question feature? You may have to scroll down for this, most likely. And just let me know what is a goal that you have, right? And I'll see if I can come up with actionable projects that you can work on to make progress towards that goal. Or you can say, hey, I have a goal. Would this be a good project for me to complete, right? That's also something you can ask. Or you can say, you know what? I actually have a pretty good sense of the projects that I want to complete, but which tasks can I do? Okay. So just use the question feature, and I'll start answering your questions just in a sec. All right, thanks. I see them coming in again, so already. So let's do that. I'm going to start with this one. So Johnny says, what do goals and projects look like in your task manager? So this is a good, hey, I see I'm out of focus. Right, there we go. What do goals and projects look like in your task manager? That's what Johnny asks, which is a very good question. I'm going to take issue with your assumption here. Goals have no business being in your task manager. And so I work with people one-on-one quite a bit, and I see this every now and then. Someone is using OmniFocus or Things or whatever task manager, and they've got some of their goals listed in their task manager, and it's just awkward. Task managers are meant to manage tasks. They're not meant to manage goals. So there really is not a good way of putting your goals in your task manager. So instead, what I would do is keep your list of goals somewhere else. Could be on paper, could be in a notes app. I like Bear, for example, but like really any notes app will do. In my course, Big Picture Productivity, I teach a very, very simple way to do this in Notion. I almost hesitate to bring up Notion because for those of you who heard about it, it's like the shiniest of shiny objects. So be careful with it. Doesn't matter. Make a list of your goals somewhere. And then your actionable projects, they go in your task manager as projects. Okay. So I think this is an excellent question, Johnny. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually share my screen with you guys, and I'll just show you an example. So I'm going to go and share my things. Can someone just confirm that you're seeing my things right now? Because that would be really handy to know. You do not. Oh boy. Better? There we go. All righty. That took a second. Like I said, I'm new to this webinar ninja thing, guys. Right. So I got my task manager over here, okay? So if I have a goal, let's say my goal is to become a better writer, right? Use the same one. What I'm going to do is maybe I'll have like a writing area in my task manager, right? So I was calling it demonstration area, but we can call it writing. And I'm just going to create a project, put it under there, and I'm going to say sign up for a fiction writing masterclass, right? So what's another thing that I might want to do? I might want to say analyze the structure of my 5 favorite blog posts by other writers. Okay, so this is how I would do it. You've got a goal. Goal doesn't go in there. I see some people are still saying they don't see it yet, but others are. Don't know how to fix that for you guys. See if I can make it really, really big. Okay, now it should be really, really big. So there we go. All right. So that's what I would do. You've got your goal, okay? And goal doesn't go in the task manager. Keep it somewhere in a notes app, on paper, in Notion, anywhere. Keep your list of goals, and then have your projects sitting as projects in your task manager. All right, Johnny, that was my answer over there. I will stop sharing my screen so you guys can see my pretty face again. And I hope that helped. So let me move on to the next one. We got a bunch of them in here. Let me see if I can get to quite a few of these. Carla asks or says, complete family history and photo project. Okay, then let me get to that, Carla. And maybe Carla, if you in the chat could like give us a little bit more info on this, I think that'd be helpful. So again, it says complete family history and photo project. When I read that or hear that, the first thing I think of is, what is the outcome that you want? So like visualize the outcome. A family history and photo project. What does that result in? Okay. Okay, that's interesting. Meaningful connection with teenage son. I don't know. Is that you, Carla, or is that someone else? I don't know. Probably not you. So is the outcome a photo album, right? Is the outcome you knowing your family heritage, right? Is the outcome you being able to share this with other people? So I would say get a lot more specific, okay? Because in your task manager, if you're going to be writing down complete family history and photo project, it's very hard to define tasks, okay? Very hard to define tasks just because the goal and the project itself are really fuzzy. So it's kind of a hierarchy. Always start with your goal. Like, what is it that you want? That's your goal, okay? And once you have a pretty good picture of what it is that you want, you're going to go down to the level of an actionable project. And the actionable project is what's going to help you achieve that goal. After you do that, it's just a matter of going down and filling in the steps of the actionable project. So in this case, if it's a photo project, it may result in a photo album, right? So if your goal is to like leave my kids with a photo album of their young years or something like that, right? That's great. Then a project could be like gather photos, right? It may take you quite a while to gather photos from all the different places, especially if they're not digital photos, right? That could be an actionable project. And you could probably make that a bit more precise by saying like, gather photos of Bobby, from ages 0 to whatever and stuff. Another project might be like decide what the actual photo album is going to look like. So you've got your goal, you're defining it more clearly. Then you are defining your projects more clearly. And then you move on to fleshing out the steps. I see. Carla says outcome would be digital photo with the story of the family history, finish up genealogy on ancestry.com. Okay, so does that make sense then, what I was saying, Carla? So if you want to finish up the geology on ancestry.com, to me, that seems like a supporting project for your goal. Okay, that seems like a supporting project for the goal. So you could phrase that as the goal itself, saying like, no, really, like what I want is I just want to have ancestry.com filled out. That's cool. So now what are you going to do to make that happen? Okay, so maybe you need to have some projects that is like talk to all my cousins to get information. Could be one of your projects, right? Another one of your projects could be like visit some archive somewhere. Maybe it's a church archive or wherever, right? And so try and get a lot more specific. And I think that will help you make progress. So I see that's helpful. So cool, Carla. Thanks. And just so you guys know, as I'm answering these, I click start answering, and then I also click stop answering when I answer. So you guys can go back to the recording and go back to the specific time when I was answering a specific question. So that's cool. Okay, we got a question from Theo. So Theo asks, or he says, if I understand correctly, the hierarchy is objectives, goals, projects, tasks, and then subtasks. More or less, Theo. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Theo is already enrolled in my latest course, Big Picture Productivity. So I know a little bit about Theo. So it's nice to see you here, Theo. And so, yeah, I would say at the top of the list is kind of your values. So at the top of the list is like, what are the things that you care about in life? So, for example, one of the things that I care about is competence. I like being competent. I just like being good at things. It just fulfills me, makes me happy. And so below the values, things you care about, family, whatever, right? Set your projects. And so then, set your goals. And so goals are just things you want, right? So one of my goals is to like own my own scuba gear, for example. I've been saying this for a long time. So I don't know if any of you have been sort of like with me for more than a year or something. I was saying that a year ago too. I will have you know, if you're one of those people, I will be buying one very shortly, my own scuba set. So, so hopefully I can stop using that as an example sometime soon. So you've got your values, then you've got your goals. And just like I said, goals have one or more actionable projects. Projects have tasks. Some tasks have subtasks. So I hope that makes sense, Theo. All righty. So we've got Oykun over here. By the way, I may be butchering your name. Sounds Turkish. I may be butchering it. I'm sorry. I actually have a Turkish girlfriend, and so I do want to learn Turkish one day. It's actually one of my goals is learn Turkish. Don't have any actionable projects defined for that yet. Oh, thanks. That's great. It's on the back burner, but someday that's going to happen. So you said apply the Marie Kondo method to my life. Okay, that's the goal here. So again, this is something that I think could benefit from precision. So why do you want to apply the Marie Kondo method to your life? So I'm not super familiar with the yes, more conversational Turkish. I'm not super familiar with the Marie Kondo method. I think it has something to do with tidying up your life, right? That's pretty much what I know about it. I know it's very famous and it's about tidying up. And so I don't know off the top of my head what all the steps involved are. But here's where you start. You start with asking yourself why. Like, why do you want this? And so your goal may be a very legit goal is to like have a tidy house. Totally fine. Great goal. In fact, I would recommend for a lot of people that they make that a goal, like have a tidy house. I like when I visit somewhere if it's tidy. And so if that's your goal, right, then you're going to define actionable projects. And an actionable project could be apply the Marie Kondo method, but I don't know if her method is sort of well defined enough for me to be able to tell you, that's a great actionable project. So perhaps it needs breaking down. Could be something like a project could be go through my wardrobe, right, and get rid of anything I don't need. So that would be an actionable project. And so this would not be a task because you may not be able to like clean up your entire wardrobe at once. So because you may not do it all at once, it's a project rather than a task. And I think that would be a good actionable project for the goal of sort of having a tidier apartment or something like that. But maybe we're not talking only about like the house. Maybe you're talking also about like your head. Could also be that you just want your head to be tidier, right? In which case, I would say your project should be setting up a task manager. That should be your project. And so, start with a goal. Don't start with projects. Okay, start with the goal. What do you want, and what is an actionable project that you can undertake to get there? So, if you'd like to give me any more information in the chat, by the way, I can come back to this and maybe answer it in a more useful way. But that's as precise as I can get right now. All right, let's see. Got a question over here from Vigneshwar. I hope I'm getting these names right. That's the thing when you get people from all over the world, is you're gonna butcher some names. And it says how to build a content creation habit revolving around writing. I love this question. A lot of people ask me how to build habits, and it's tricky. Okay, building habits is tricky. Close enough. There you go. Thank you. First thing I always say about habit formation is like, go read James Clear's Atomic Habits. It's a book that, full disclosure, I have not read this myself, but everybody keeps recommending it to me. So I will shortly be reading it. But this guy clearly knows a lot about it. Okay, so like, just being fair, you got to read this book. Okay, now, how do we apply the framework of goals, actionable projects, and tasks to building a content creation habit? I often see people who want to build a habit trying to use their task manager in a way that's not helpful. So, why don't I share my things again, just to show you guys what not to do. I think that'll actually be handy. So I'll make sure I'm making it really big for you guys. I think everybody should be able to see it now. So, how not to form habits. Okay. How not to form habits is to say, write, and then to go and make this a repeating task and repeat it every day. Okay. So a lot of people do that, or people might be like meditate, set that as a repeating thing. Now, very important to understand a distinction here. I do have a repeating task in my things, sits in my health area, that says to meditate, and it comes up every day. Actually, I'm doing it twice a day now, morning and evening, but that is not going to help you build a habit. So task management is a good way to like, just so you know, this is one of the things you're going to be doing today. That's why you want this task for the habit that you're building in your task manager, but your task manager is not going to help you build a habit. Okay. Just seeing a task in your task manager is not going to somehow make you do it today. So building the habit is something that you have to do kind of outside of your task manager. Now, having said that, you can create actionable projects to help you build a habit. Just stop sharing my screen again for a sec. So in this case, the habit is a content creation habit around writing. Here's something I did. I wrote a blog post every day for 365 days straight. Well, I say this to people, but towards the end, I started cheating and I started creating videos some days instead of a blog post. But anyway, I created a piece of content every day for 365 days straight. And for a lot of it, it was blog posts. So it doesn't, again, just having that as a repeating task, a recurring task in your task manager is not going to make you do it. But you can create a project to help you build the habit. So what I would do is create a project that says, write 30 blog posts in 30 days. And the tasks underneath that project are not going to be write blog post 1, write blog post 2, but they're going to be things that you can act on to make this more likely. What might those things be? Those things might be schedule a time on my calendar for every day of these 30 days to reserve time to do the content creating. Another one might be purchase a nicer keyboard for your computer, right? Another one could be talk to my housemates and ask whether they can please shut the bleep up while I'm doing my daily writing, right? So your actionable project and your tasks are going to be supporting building the habit. That's the way that I've seen it work for people. That's the way it works for me. So your goal in this case is to, I don't know what your goal is. Maybe it's to grow your business or something like that. I don't know. So your actionable project is going to be basically create the conditions for helping you succeed at this new habit. Hope that makes sense. Try it that way. And actually, let me know about the result. I'd be curious to see whether that's going to work for you. Okay, we got a bunch of questions still coming in here. Ron. Ron asks, how do I better organize my personal and work-life projects in a task manager and stick with it? Okay, Ron, that's a broad question. that's a broad question, and I recognize your name, so I suspect you're one of my students, Ron. Okay, Vigneshwar, I'm glad you like that. Good. So, Ron, I'm going to need a little bit more information here. So, it's mostly the stick with it part. Okay. So, how to better organize is very dependent on which particular things you've got going on in your personal life and in your work life. And in my courses, I teach sort of a basic framework that works really well for most people. But I always suggest that people customize it over time. Okay. So let's put away the organization though and talk about sticking with it. So if you want to stick with a task manager, right, then you've got to feel that it is contributing to your life. So funny story. So I've had this business for about a year and a half now. And before that, I was trying lots of other business things that didn't really go anywhere. And I've been dating my current girlfriend for about 2.5 years now. So we've been dating for 2.5 years. And I've had my business for 1.5 years. But it's really only been in like the past couple of months that she's actually been using a task manager, which I found really, really funny because like she's heard me talk about task managers for so long now. And she's seen me like teach lots of other people how to use a task manager. And I've been nudging her sort of over the past year and a half. Every now and then I'm like, hey, the stuff I teach, it really works. Like people are like, it works. But you know how it is with like people who don't want to change something, like if you push them really hard, it doesn't make things better. So I just kind of like gently nudged. But then a couple of months ago, she started her own side hustle and she actually started, she realized, oh, I have like a lot of tasks and projects now. Okay. And like now I really feel like I need to start using a task manager. So I was like, nice. I start working with her, setting it up. And very quickly, she realized that by using a task manager, something was better. And she felt more in control. She had a better view of all the different things that were going on, both at her job and her side hustle and her other personal projects. And so by trying it and seeing that it works, she had the confidence, okay, that it was worth maintaining the system, maintaining the task manager. Now she uses things. Now she loves things, and she keeps it like every other week. It's like, oh my god, things is amazing. Like I can't believe I didn't use this before. Blah blah. And so I guess what I'm thinking here, Ron, is that if you don't stick with it, some part of you just like doesn't believe that it's worth the time. That's the thing that I see the most with people who drop their system. Often is they just don't trust the system. So it's happened so many times now. I've been working with a one-on-one student, or just corresponding with one of my students who've taken my courses. And they say, you know what, everything was going great. And I was using my system for like 2 months. Then I got this super, super, super busy project at work. I just did not have the time to update my task manager. I started getting away from it. And then they stopped updating the task manager for like a week or two. And now they don't trust it anymore. Right? Maybe there's some people on the call who are like, that's me. I've been there, could be. And so as soon as you don't trust your task manager anymore, yeah, Ron, there you go. as soon as you don't trust it anymore, it's useless, right? Because if you have to have like a piece of paper next to your computer that is like what I'm going to do today, then you're not trusting your task manager. So the thing about task managers is you've got to go all in. Doesn't half-assing doesn't make any sense. So what I usually tell people is the key is that your task manager stays up to date, and or you switch task managers too often, says Aaron. That is true. People do that. People do that. I not recommend it, by the way. The key here is the weekly review run. So 9 out of 10 times, what I'll do is I'll sit down with someone and say, we're going to go on your calendar and we're going to like reserve time for you to do your weekly review. Usually just an hour a week. Although if you haven't done it for a while, perhaps the first time you do your weekly review is going to be 2 hours or 3 hours or something like that. But we're going to put the weekly review on the calendar. We're going to treat it like a doctor's appointment. You're not going to miss this appointment, okay, unless there's a very, very, very good reason. But by doing your weekly review steadily every week, don't miss it. Your task manager is going to always be up to date, and then you're going to trust it, and you're a lot more likely to keep using it. So, Ron, that would be my answer for you there. Let's see what else we got. Diana asks, is this a precise goal? Question. Get a job as engineering until December 2020. Okay, so get a job as an engineer by December 2020, okay? Is that a precise goal? Yes. Is that a good goal? Let's talk. Thanks, Ron. I appreciate that. Okay, so Diana, if you want to get a job as an engineer, right? That in itself, I think, is a fine goal. I wouldn't put a date on it because, again, just in the same way that you want to phrase actionable projects in terms of things you control, you also want to phrase your goals mostly in terms of things you can control. And so if you want to get a job as an engineer by the end of the year, what you control is like, how many connections are you building with other people in the industry? Are you writing a good resume? Are you doing projects on your own that you can use to demonstrate your expertise? So I don't know what kind of engineer you're talking about here. So that's kind of a caveat, but let's say software engineer, right? Like, are you building your own little open source projects right now that will help you do that? And those things you can control. Whether you actually get a nice job by the end of the year, who knows? I mean, that's partly up to you, but partly also to other things. Like right now, in case you hadn't noticed, we have a coronavirus situation. There's a pandemic, so that that's something that you don't know that's going to happen, and it can influence whether you get the job. So what I would say is, just say your goal is get a job as an engineer. If you can get more specific, for example, it could be like as a software engineer or as a whatever engineer, but like you probably know which kind of engineer you're referring to. And you could make it more specific, saying get an entry-level job or whatever, but probably for you, that's specific enough. Okay, so the next step, Diana, is to think about actionable projects. So now you've got your goal. That's great. What are the actionable projects that you're going to do? So let me see if I can come up with a few. I already said, let's say a software engineer, build your own little open source project that you can share with future employers, right? You can make a resume, and one of your projects could be get feedback on my resume from 8 friends or something like that, or from 3 people in the industry, right? Something like that. Could also be like schedule coffee with 5 people from companies that I'd like to apply to, or something like that. So these are sort of the actionable projects that you're going to go through. And as you're going to go through them, you're going to get closer to meeting the goal. Okay, so hope that makes sense. Let's see. All right, you're welcome, Diana. You're welcome, Diana. We've got Bernd. Bernd is from Sweden. And Bernd wants to move from a place in Sweden to, I don't know, is the other place also in Sweden, or is that in Denmark? Mariehamn, I don't know. I don't know where that is. But anyway, you want to move. And Bernd wants to move because he likes the climate and feeling for the place and the people. Okay. In Finland. Okay, in Finland. Thanks, Bernd. I guess my Scandinavian topography, geography knowledge needs work. All right. So that is, I guess, a goal. And so the question is, how are you going to make this happen? So like with anything, use a 3-step framework. Start with the goal, and your goal is to make that move happen. So projects might be understand the legal implications of moving. So, for example, lovely island between Sweden and Finland. Cool, cool. Right? So, a project might be to understand the legal implications, like to list out all the steps of like all the administrative things that you need to do to be able to switch, leases to cancel, insurance to cancel, or to like change over or stuff like that, right? Another one, if you got a partner, could be like, understand your partner, like how they view this, right? So you could, for example, schedule conversations with them, or they may have questions. Some of your tasks could be research, the answer to the questions that my partner has about this move or something like that. I think for a lot of people, making a move is kind of this big nebulous thing that's like a dream, a goal, but they think it's never going to happen. So in fact, we've got someone right now, one of the big picture productivity students, and he has kind of a goal or a dream like this too. And sometimes when I hear him talk about it, it kind of sounds like, is this going to happen? And it can be very tricky to move from the goal stage to the implementation stage. So I like to just think about it as precisely as possible. I mean, what's holding you up right now? Do you lack information on how to do this? If so, create actionable projects for acquiring that information. Okay. Do you lack money? Then you're going to need to like create actionable projects to get the money, right? Is it like a visa issue, or do you not understand like legally how to do this, right? Right now, COVID-19. Okay. That's, some things you just can't do anything about. So, don't have any fantastic actionable projects. I don't know. An actionable project could be like, go talk to Donald Trump and the Brazilian president idiot and like get them to fix things. I don't know. That's like that's as much as I can do here, parent, for coronavirus. Anyway, aside from the coronavirus, I think the actionable projects. Think about what is stopping you, and specifically which things can you do to move yourself a little bit closer. Right. That's as much as I can tell you right now. All right, Brent. Cool. Johnny has a question and a not question. So thanks for the not question. Johnny said I have a very uplifting attitude. I like to hear that. Yeah, you're welcome, Bernd. So I'm going to delete that one. But I'm going to answer this question, Johnny. Johnny says, I want to sell my nail business. Okay. That sounds like a nice goal. And it's actually pretty similar, I would say, to the move that we just talked about with Bernd. What do you need to be able to complete this, to achieve this goal of selling your nail business? So do you understand legally how to do this? Do you have any partners that you need to, I don't know, buy out or something, or that you need to get to agree? Right? I think I need to know a little bit more about the constraints here. So what is the thing that's stopping you right now from doing this? So it's a perfectly fine goal. Like if you want to, first of all, you have my permission. Sometimes people just need to hear that this is okay. So I always say, you have my permission. You should go do this. And so what's stopping you? Is it an information problem? Is it a money problem? Is it a not understanding the legal ramifications? So one actionable project could be, get a lawyer to look at my situation and tell me what I need to do. And so steps in that project might be like, find 3 lawyers near you who specialize in this kind of stuff, give them all a call and see which one, answers the phone in the friendliest way, or something like that. Right. So just work backwards. Like, what do you need to be able to do this? And then you say, oh, I need information. Okay. Create a project to acquire information. If you need courage, that's a harder one. If you need courage to do it, it may be very hard to have an actionable project for that. Maybe you can create an actionable project that's like convince myself, or like build up the courage to do this, and you can schedule some conversations with supportive friends or something like that. But very similar to what I was saying with Bernd. Ask yourself what's missing and go work on that. Okay. Sue, you have a question, but you put it in the chat. Would you mind putting that question in the actual question box, Sue? If you scroll down below me, you should see the question. The reason I say that is because then I can press the button that says start answering, and then people who are watching the recording can actually see that marked as a question. So, all right. Let's go to a question from Kevin. Kevin asks, how do you stop your brain from continually coming up with goals and tasks? Well, Kevin, you don't. This is so. I don't know. Does anybody other than me on this call meditate? I just like to just say yes in the chat or raise your hand or whatever. I'm just curious about this because this sounds very similar to me to people who say, how do I not have any thoughts? And anybody who meditates knows that like that's not how it works. So this is just not how it works. So I hope that those of you who said yes can identify with me here. So you don't stop your brain from coming up with things to do, but what you want is a system to capture the things that you may want to do. So just today I was on a run. And I'm on a run and I've got like two nice ideas. One for changing the slides for this presentation that I just did here a little bit. Another one for something unrelated. And so what I could do is stop my run, pull out my phone, and immediately enter these things into my task manager things. But I don't want to do that because I'm on my run. I want to keep running. So I always say, enter this in your task manager at the first convenient opportunity. So don't wait 2 hours. I mean, maybe under certain circumstances you wait 2 hours, but usually not. So in my case, as soon as I stopped running, I remembered those two things and put them in. But I deliberately set the intention while I was running. I visualized myself like stopping the running, like slowing down, taking out my phone and writing down those two things. So very important. Don't try to stop tasks from coming up. Just put them in your task manager. And then if you do the weekly review, by the way, for those of you who have not seen my weekly review cheat sheet, go grab that from my website, peterruckys.net. Grab the weekly review cheat sheet. Super helpful. You're going to do your weekly review. And in the weekly review, you're going to see all of these ideas that you had that you quickly dumped in your task manager throughout the week. And then you're going to decide which ones would you still like to keep and which ones not. Okay, so that's how I would do that. And there's a related problem, which I won't cover right now. It's like, oh, I've got too many things to do, but I'll leave that for another one. Aaron says, if you're running, you can use Siri and AirPods. That's not a bad idea, Aaron. Actually, I should try that because I often wear my AirPods. So good idea. Cool. Let's just do like one or two more questions or something like that. All right, because I don't want to keep you guys too long today. So Sue asks, what about dependencies like Corona? How do you put a pin in that and keep it in your system? Like the moving to another place goal. Let me guess, Sue says, include the goal in a quarter and keep moving it to a new quarter until the constraint is resolved. So Sue is one of my students for Big Picture Productivity. And so what she's referring to is the quarterly planning process that we do in Big Picture Productivity. And specifically, what we do is we define actionable projects, and then we assign those to a specific quarter. So we say, I have a goal. For this goal, I have an actionable project or more than one actionable project. And I am going to schedule this particular project for Q3 of 2020, and that particular one for Q4 of 2020. And if coronavirus prevents you from doing one of them, just postpone it to a future quarter. Postpone it to someday. Someday is a good one. If the project is already in your task manager in things 3, use the someday feature. If you're using OmniFocus, you can set the whole project to be on hold, or you can apply a someday maybe tag. Just have it not show up for a while, okay? Because if you cannot act on it, you really want it out of your view. It's really distracting to have to see it every day or every week, even if you can't act on it. So that's just generally a task management principle. Things you cannot act on, you don't want to see them. There's various strategies we can go into in detail, but you can learn more about that in my courses or maybe check out my YouTube videos. But that's the basics. All right, let's see. We'll wrap up here soon. Just a question from Carmen. So Carmen asks, or says, I'm a parent of 3 busy kids. I work and I want to pursue a new career. I have a hard time sticking to any organization system or planner because my mind and life needs are changing every 5 minutes. Is there a trick to creating a sanctuary of time to organize my day and goals. Wow, a sanctuary of time. I've not heard that phrase before, Carmen. So that's nice of you to say that. Wonder if you're related, by the way, based on your last name, to one of my big picture productivity students. I thought so. Nice. Well, you can thank him. Cool. So no, there's no trick to. I'm looking over his shoulder. That's really nice. There's no trick to creating a sanctuary of time. But again, I was mentioning this earlier. I don't know if you caught it. I think you really want to convince yourself that it's worth taking out the time. So it's kind of something that if you start really small, okay? So give yourself like even just 15 minutes to write down a list of your goals and see if you feel any better. Like I sometimes do this just like really basic, okay? And so I've got my goals in my Notion and everything, the whole setup that I teach people, but just as an example, I'll sometimes do that and just there's something that I want to map out. Practical example. I've been working on automating my business's accounting for a while. My business is growing. The accounting is becoming more and more work. I already did a good amount of automation earlier in the year. And it's nice because you invest time up front, you save time later, but more automation is necessary. So the other day, that was just going around my head. I found it really hard to think about anything else. I wanted to read and go to bed, and I just couldn't stop thinking about my accounting. So took out my notebook. I've got it over there. And I just drew a little diagram of how I think all the apps that can automate some stuff should fit together. And this took me maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. I don't know. And just by doing that for 5 or 10 minutes, it was out of my brain. It was on the page there, right? And it doesn't have to be a physical page. It can be wherever. And that helped a lot. And it really made me feel like, sitting down and taking the time to do this is worth it. I feel better now that I took a little bit of time to write this down, okay? So my advice to you, I understand you've got a ton of things going on, is take just a small amount of time and do a little bit. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? You don't have to say, well, I really need a whole day to fully think through my goals and stuff, which you probably would. You probably need several days to do this. But if you don't have those, doesn't mean you can't do anything. You can, in fact, take 15 minutes, quickly get the things that are the stickiest out of your head onto paper, onto your writing app or whatever, just to calm your head down a little bit and to think, you know what, this was worth 15 minutes. Maybe next time I can take 30 minutes and that'll be worth it too. So that would be my advice there. So cool. All right. Well, I see that there's one more question, which I will ask, and then we shall wrap up. Question from Johnny. Can a couple share a task together in OmniFocus or Things 3? The answer, Johnny, is no. Sorry. Both OmniFocus and Things 3 are meant to be used as an individual. And I see Carmen in the chat saying thanks. You're welcome, Carmen. No, Johnny, you cannot. I will tell you that OmniFocus, the Omni Group, is currently working on a feature to share tasks. Who knows when that'll be ready? Maybe this year, maybe not this year. They're working on it. So there are, of course, other apps that will let you share tasks. I think Todoist lets you do that. But otherwise, I think OmniFocus and Things are way better. So anyway, short answer there. Cool. So let's wrap up, folks. I am just going to open my slides again. And I'm going to have to go through these real fast. Cool. I want to tell you guys just in a few minutes about this course, Big Picture Productivity, and make you an offer related to this course. So this is my third course, like I was saying. I think I have somewhere in between 40 and 50 people who have enrolled now. I released it maybe a month or two ago. It's been really nice to have people go through the course, give me feedback, and a lot of people have given me very positive feedback. We'll get there in a second. So what is this course about? So my first two courses, a lot about the day-to-day and the week-to-week, about managing your tasks and projects. A lot of people found that helpful. Big Picture Productivity is about the bigger picture. So it's really about clarifying and achieving your goals. A lot of what we talked about today, but in a more structured process and in a lot more detail, of course. Very actionable. So there's 5 modules, dozens of video lessons, worksheets, exercises, and those are in there because I believe that if you get theory and action, that's what gets you results, okay? So the course is self-paced, which means you can go through it whatever speed you like. You can go really fast, you can go really slow. Helps to do the work, of course, right? But it's self-paced. You get access indefinitely. There's no time constraint or anything like that. For the people who enrolled way at the beginning, we did some live Zoom calls. And so there's some recordings that are part of the course environment now. So you can take a look at those and see what real people, real students like yourself, going through the course, what kind of questions they had and how I was able to help them with that. And of course, there's also always support from me. So if you're going through the course and let's say you're on module 2 and you get a little bit stuck, you can email me. You can ask Theo. I don't know if Theo's still here. He emails me and we talk about what's going on with him, and they'll be like, all right, you know what? I think this is the way forward for you. So there we go. Theo likes the course. Thanks, man. Okay. So some things that people say about the course. The worksheets were a goldmine. That was lovely to hear. Very thankful to people sharing their positive words about the course. Sue, who is right here, who we were just talking to, said that she was only completed 29% of the course so far, but has already seen internal changes in her thinking and confidence. Look at that. I love to hear that. Great to know, Sue. Keep plugging away, by the way. And there you go. Sue is in the chat. Nice. And Joelle is one of my students who's also taken my other courses, says he got a huge return on his investment of time and money. So I love to hear these things. Anyway, point is, people like the course. So what offer do I have for you today? If you enroll in the next 3 hours, I'm going to also give you access to my Things course or my OmniFocus course. So the way it works is you enroll and then you let me know and you're like, all right, Peter, just enrolled in Big Picture Productivity. Can I also have access to your Things course? I'm going to do it when I wake up tomorrow morning, unless you email me before I go to sleep today. I need to manually enroll you in the other course. So just know that that's not going to happen instantaneously. And you can also tell me, hey, listen, Peter just enrolled in Big Picture Productivity. Can you please get me access to the OmniFocus course? And I'll get that set up for you. Number 2, a live group coaching call. So normally Big Picture Productivity is a self-paced course. You go through it by yourself, no live component. Like I said, you get the email support from me, but normally there's no video thing going on. But if you enroll now, what's going to happen is I'm going to invite you to a live group coaching call. It'll be next week, same time that this webinar is today, except next week. Okay. And it's going to be a Zoom call, a Zoom video call where it's going to be live with me. You can show your face. You can decide not to show your face, whatever you're comfortable with, and just ask me whatever you like about productivity, about topics in the course, about things you're stuck with and stuff like that. So I don't do these group coaching calls very often. Like I said, it's a self-paced thing, but right now I want to throw that in for you guys if you enroll in the next 3 hours, as well as, like I said, complimentary access to either my Things course or my OmniFocus course. So I see people asking in the chat, which one do you choose, Things or OmniFocus? Really personal choice. I used OmniFocus for many years. These days I use Things. I recommend Things for most people. It's simpler, easier to use. OmniFocus is definitely right for some people, but OmniFocus is better for people who have sort of an unusually large amount of projects or unusually complicated projects. But what I would say, Johan, is if you can't decide, you're welcome to sign up for if you take advantage of this offer. Just tell me one, and if you don't like it, I'll just switch it out for you. No problem. Okay, cool. Love it, Johan. Awesome. And yeah, there is a part in the course where I kind of help people choose a little bit between OmniFocus and Things. But if you really want my more detailed write-up of whether you should use OmniFocus or Things, just go to peterakis.net, scroll all the way down, and you'll see OmniFocus versus Things, because I wrote a very long blog post about this. So that's going to give you all the information you need if you want to know about that. Cool. Here's the link. Here's the link to the course, bigpictureproductivity.com. That's where you can enroll. Would love it if you guys did that. Really looking forward to seeing you on the other side and to helping you out. Be big picture productive. So thanks for showing up today. Thanks for attending. Share the webinar with your friends if you found it useful. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.